The birth of the twin stars, the Qin-Han Empire and the Xiongnu Empire, was no mere coincidence. The Xiongnu Empire emerged as the adaptation to the Qin-Han Empire. The unification of the steppes was the inevitable response to the unification of the Central Plains. While the Han dynasty was succeeding the Qin dynasty and consolidating its imperial system, the people on the steppes were also busy consolidating an unprecedented new polity, and with remarkable success. During the time of Qin Shi Huangtou, Grand Chanyu was defeated by the Qin army and fled in disarray, but just a few decades later, his son Grand Chanyu was able to force Emperor Gaozu of Han to sign the treaty under coercion after the Battle of Baideng. The Battle of Baideng marked the beginning of the 400 years of war and peace between the Han and the Xiongnu. In this contest between the Central Plains Empire and the Steppe Empire, while the Xiongnu had their moments of glory, the Han dynasty generally held the upper hand. The inherent weakness of the Xiongnu Empire lay in the fact that it was, at its core, a response to the establishment of the Qin-Han Empire. The very purpose of a Xiongnu state was to extract the resources from the powerful Central Plains Empire. Once this goal could not be achieved smoothly, or when those resources could be obtained by other means, the Xiongnu state would then face the risk of being divided or even collapse. In order to thwart the Xiongnu state's attempts to obtain the resources, the Han dynasty maintained the vast Great Wall. The core function of the Great Wall was to block trade and plunder. Historian Nicola di Cosmo even considered the Great Wall as offensive rather than defensive. Moreover, the Han Empire sent envoys to the western regions and dispatched troops to the northeast, cutting the Xiongnu's ties with the oasis agriculture of the Tarim Basin and with various ethnic groups in Northeast Asia, forcing the Xiongnu to rely on the Han dynasty as their sole source of supplies. Based on this, the Han dynasty adopted a carrot-and-stick policy to divide and dismantle the Xiongnu. On the one hand, it used the core trade to win over the Xiongnu. On the other hand, it periodically sent troops to undermine the Xiongnu's economic base. The Han army's yearly spring raids were even more devastating to the Xiongnu than those few major victories won by famous Han generals like Wei Qing and his nephew Wu Qubing, the Marquis of Champion, during the Han-Xiongnu Wars under Emperor Wu of Han. Year after year, the Han dynasty disrupted the Xiongnu's livelihood, drawing them to choose trade over war. The Han dynasty's efforts to dismantle the foundations of the nomadic state's existence were not in vain. During the transition between the two Han dynasties, the Xiongnu also repeatedly fell into internal turmoil, eventually just splitting into the two factions. The Southern Xiongnu submitted to the Eastern Han dynasty, while the Northern Xiongnu gradually declined, marking the end of the Xiongnu's empire period. The Southern Xiongnu obtained the resources through trade with the Han dynasty. The Eastern Han dynasty and later its successors, the Chao Wei dynasty of the Three Kingdoms, and the Western Jin dynasty were also adept at absorbing, dividing, and suppressing the Southern Xiongnu. However, no matter how much the Central Plains dynasties undermined the foundations of the nomadic state, the Xiongnu never collapsed or disappeared, because whether in war or peace, the nomads needed to maintain a state structure in order to interact with another unified empire. The only possibility of abandoning the Xiongnu state was if the Central Plains Empire ceased to exist first. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, as the Eastern Han dynasty declined and the Central Plains fell apart, the Xiongnu Empire finally lost its reason to exist and entered the grave alongside the Qin-Han Empire. In 304, as the Western Jin Empire was collapsing from within, Liu Yuan, the Grand Chanyu of the Southern Xiongnu, took advantage and declared his independence, proclaiming the restoration of the Han regime and ushering in the chaotic era of the 16 kingdoms of the 5 Hu. His Xiongnu-led Han Zhao regime soon perished amid the chaos, and the term Xiongnu also disappeared from history and officially became a historical term. Looking back, there's a real historical irony in the fact that Liu Yuan, a Xiongnu, chose Han as the name of his regime. The Xiongnu Empire arose because of the Qin-Han Empire, and with the fall of the Han, the Xiongnu too met their end. Yet in their final moment before disappearing from history, they were, remarkably, the same regime.